everybody, it's Carm here, Rocky Bubs. Back on a Sunday night into Monday morning. I think it's a little past midnight now. Yeah, just felt like coming on. I just got back a few hours ago from my cousin's house. I celebrated Mother's Day there, and a special hello to my cousin and my uncle, who I know both watch. Yeah, it was a great day, and been wanting to do this one either for the last couple days, or if I didn't get around to it, maybe tomorrow, so I guess I'm somewhere in between there. But this is an artist I've been revisiting lately, and it's partly inspired by a good pal of mine, who many of you know, I'm sure by now, Gary, also known as Cosmic Pickle, a dear friend of mine for a few years now. He had done a video on this artist 2 or 3 years ago, and I revisited that video lately, fairly recently, you know, as I've been kind of revisiting the artist's work, and it kind of spurred me to go a little further into it. And yeah, I just wanted to share what I've been listening to lately. I don't know, you may or may not be surprised by this artist I'm showing. I'm sure you all know him well from One Third of the Police, Andy Summers. I think he started making solo albums maybe around the same time Sting did, I'm guessing, or roughly mid to late 80s. Obviously lesser known, in popularity. I'm not quite sure. I haven't really followed what Stuart Copeland's done over the years, but I'm sure he's been involved in a lot of different projects. But I first became aware of Andy Summers' solo work actually from Musical Starstreams. From, I think, probably from the earliest days, or fairly early days of the show. His music was featured, at least here and there. Maybe 1 or 2 cuts from the first few albums that were on Private Music. And I was always intrigued by it and thought, I gotta look further into it at some point. So I only have 6 albums here in all on CD. But I know he's been very, pretty prolific over the years, different collaborations. I know he's done a couple albums at least with Robert Fripp, which I have somewhere, but I haven't gotten around to listening to those yet. But I'll just start right in with what I have. Here we go. This is the earliest one I have of his, which I think is the second album he did. Mysterious Barricades. This is from, I think, 1988, Private Music. Now I gotta tell the story of this. Of course, Gary, he could tell it better, and I think he did mention it in his the initial video he did. But we share a lot of these, I guess I'd call them serendipitous moments over the years, and it really started with this album. Well, one day he was listening to this CD, Gary, at home, and I guess while it was playing, he decided he was going to put on one of my videos. Either it was the most recent one I'd put up, or maybe he was looking at an older one. But as soon as my video started, he heard this same music playing in the background of my video while he had the CD playing. So I guess he turned down the CD to make sure he wasn't going nuts. But now, at that time, I did not have this album. And what it turned out was one of the songs from here was playing. I think it was Luna, the 5th song. It was playing on the music I had in the background. What I had playing was an old Musical Starstreams episode. The 4th one I taped from, I think it was either late July or early August of 1990. I taped it off the radio. And this was the only episode I had ever recorded. The only episode I had ever recorded cutting out the voiceover narration. So I wouldn't have known who was playing what, unless I already had heard it before, I'd heard it sometime later. So I didn't know that was Andy Summers playing. And I still didn't know, when he pointed out he heard that music in the background. So eventually I went and picked this album up myself. And finally when I heard that song, Luna, that 4th song, it solved a mystery for me after 25 years because I think he had done that video in 2015 or 2016. So yeah, and eventually got the album, and it's a wonderful album. It's a very quiet, subdued, nothing like you would expect maybe from someone from the Police playing at that time, in the 80s. It's just him on guitars electric and acoustic, along with a fellow named David Henschel, who plays keyboards, synthesizers. Very quiet, subtle, spacious, ambient at times, moody. It kind of has that sort of clouds continually crossing the sun, shifting light and textures, and just very beautiful and atmospheric, even quite dramatic and cinematic at times. But yeah, just lovely stuff, and would highly recommend if you like, quieter, subtler music. It's instrumental too, which like a lot of his albums are that way. Definitely went in a different direction than Sting did for the most part, but excellent stuff, nonetheless. But yeah, it's one of those albums that's become a touchstone in a sense, even though I've only had it for a short time. Next up is The Golden Wire, which came out the following year, 1989, also on Private Music. This one kind of takes up where the previous one left off. David Henschel's also on here on keyboards. Kind of spacious and atmospheric. Although this one gets a lot more groove oriented. Adds some musicians to it. At times gets in more of instrumental rock territory. Sometimes jazzier. Jimmy Haslip on bass plays on a few of the tunes. Paul McCandless is on several cuts on various woodwinds. Kurt Wortman on drums or drum programming. What do you expect? This time of night too. They call it the bewitching hour. But yeah, it's really overall it's more diverse than the previous album. And if you're more of a rock person used to a fan of the Police and just rock in general, this one might be more of one to start with if you're curious about getting into solo stuff. If Mysterious Barricades might be a little quieter for some tastes, but if you want to go a little further into what you had heard previously when he was with the group, this might be a good place to start. And again, it goes into a lot of different territory. There's one tune on here which I believe has a it's called Piatose, which has a East Indian singer, it sounds like, and very just has that influence to it. So yeah, you could see he's already going into some really interesting territory. And next up here is Charming Snakes. By the way, all three of these have been, these first three have all been featured on Musical Star Streams at different times. It kind of had gradually found out over the years. This one even gets more, kind of more up-tempo and, kind of a blending of, it's a blending of jazz and rock and different kinds of music. I wouldn't really call it fusion per se. Maybe somewhat, but it seems to avoid most of the cliches of that. But it makes references to other styles. But again, gets even more high energy and more driving. Though I think I prefer the previous one a little bit more. But I know they have one of Chad Wackerman's on here, I believe, on drums, which really adds a lot of energy to it. Yeah, Chad Wackerman's on drums. Bill Evans plays soprano sax, if you know his playing. And also Ed Mann on percussion. Actually, Ed Mann and Chad Wackerman both played with Frank Zappa back in the 80s. It was probably just right before this. But this is another really good one as well. Also some nice atmospheric cuts too, which of course make it perfect for Star Streams. But yeah, another really good one. And this is also on Private Music. And I think he made a few more on Private Music after this, maybe 2 or 3 more. I don't have those yet, but yeah, very good. This next one jumps ahead a year or two. Actually, this one's from 1990. Now this next one is what's playing in the background. Andy Summers with John Etheridge. Now this I didn't previously know about until I'd seen Gary's video. And John Etheridge is also a guitarist. They both play, it's pretty much all acoustic, 6 and 12 string guitars and acoustic bass. This came out on the Mesa label. It's a really nice label. heard the group Exchange is from there. And this one's from 91. And you could hear it's a real nice kind of interplay between the two of them. To me, it's kind of somewhere between early Acoustic Alchemy and, if you know, the Ralph Illenberger, Martin Colby duets from the late 70s, early 80s on Mood Records. You know, it's pretty much in a similar vein to those, but covers a lot of ground here. I like these pictures of them together. It's mostly originals by the two of them, but they also cover Nuages by Django Reinhardt and Monk's Mood by Thelonious Monk. So, but yeah, if you like acoustic guitar, especially this kind of duo interplay, I definitely recommend it. Been really getting into this one a lot lately. But and again, it's another side of Andy Summers that might not have been aware of if you hadn't heard this previously. So yeah, very neat. John Etheridge, I believe, was with for some time with Soft Machine, I think early on. A lot of different groups, a very diverse array of projects. But, yeah, another very good one. And just a couple more here. Again, don't have very much, but now that I've been revisiting, definitely want to look further overall. Now, I'd have to agree with Gary. I think he was saying this himself. Besides Mysterious Barricades, I think this is also his personal favorite. This one here is another favorite of both he and I. And yeah, this is wonderful. Earth and Sky. This is jumping ahead quite some years from the previous one, from 91. This one is from 02 or 03. But this is really, really good. This goes into more jazzy territory. Not completely like a straight jazz album, kind of like, there's some rock throughout. It's it's hard driving, but there's also a lot more subtlety, I think, with what he was doing with the earlier groups. And the lineup on here is incredible. You've got Abraham Laboriel on bass and Vinny Colaiuta on drums, which is just fantastic. John Beasley on keyboards, John Novello keyboards, and Katis Buckingham on saxophone. Yeah, recorded in 02, came out in 03. But this is just fantastic. I've been playing this a lot lately. Really nicely composed and arranged. I believe these are all originals too, by Andy Summers. That's something I'm really coming to appreciate about him, is he's really a fine composer. And his guitar playing is very, on the surface it seems quite simple. He doesn't do anything flashy. There's no I don't know what you call it, like the stereotype of the guitar hero, playing as fast as they can within a short, bar structure or however it is. But yeah, he just says a great deal with just a few notes, and on here it's no exception. Going from different textures, acoustic and electric, playing more rock oriented, but it's very very subtle, and yeah, this is fantastic. I would highly recommend this. If you're more of a jazz person than a rock person and you're curious about Andy Summers, get into this one. Maybe check out this one first and work your way back, but it's fantastic. And finally here, this is the most recent one I picked up, and I'm not even sure. Gary, do you know about this one? This is called Triboluminescence. Recorded in 2016, came out in 2017. This is pretty much an all-solo album here. He's playing just about all the instruments, except there's another musician playing cello on there. You can see all the different guitar, bass, keyboards, drums, psaltery, which is really interesting, playing that. Banjo, percussion. It's and this, I'd say in some ways this is almost like I've only given it a few spins so far. It really sounds kind of like a summation of his solo career and his playing up until this point, but also trying a lot of different things. it's hard to. It's like he's pulling out all the stops, but not doing it at once. It doesn't sound chaotic, but he's doing kind of putting as many things in the pot as possible. But doing it such a way that there's enough space in between, the various influences and songs, and very modern sounding too, using some, I guess you could call it dub music. You could hear a little bit of that in there. I think as of this album, he's already well into his 70s, 74, 75, but very contemporary, very it's a very hip album, very really fascinating, and getting so many different guitar textures and styles and approaches that I'd never heard him do before. Again, from kind of more hard-edged rock to more ambient to more surreal. It really goes through a lot of different permutations, I guess you could say. But great stuff here. Might be a little bit difficult for a newcomer, but definitely worth sampling. But yeah, Andy Summers, just about up to this point. He might have, I don't know, I have to check, he might have put something else out since this, or maybe just before, but yeah, it's an incredible journey he's on, and yeah, amazing stuff. So yeah, that's just a few Andy Summers, the few that I have that I've been revisiting lately. But again, I like all of these, very much. And yeah, again, if you're coming from like a more of an ambient, atmospheric instrumental area or orientation, go for Mysterious Barricades. And if you want to go for something between that and something maybe closer to fusion in a sense, go for Golden Wire or Charming Snakes. This one's probably the more harder driving, like more rock oriented, but they're both really good for that. And again, you like the more acoustically oriented sort of thing. Again, kind of like Acoustic Alchemy or any number of kind of guitar duo, or what you're hearing right here. Go for this. And yeah, if you're more of a jazz, straight jazz person, straight ahead jazz, check out this one. And again, if you just want to jump kind of into the abyss in some ways, go for this one. But yeah, they're all worth sampling. And if you're not familiar with what he's done outside of the Police, these are just various avenues you could check out. So yeah, I'll do it for about now. Again, I don't do videos this late very often, so I don't know how much sense this is all made to the director just off camera. See, this is their time. This is their time to really be out and about. So yeah, I'll see what comes next. I'll try to come on later in the week and see how the schedule is. Just listed a couple of things that I'm pretty much ready to do. Just get them a little more together. And I'll be back on whenever. So I hope you're all well from wherever you're at, and until the next one. Peace, love, and joy.